Yeah, what up, world? Prophet Jewel today. Alright, this one might be the biggest one so far. This one's real important, so I hope I can get it short enough and not important enough. Let's get into it. Alright, this one's called Ego versus Humanity. Alright, so before I like to start with definitions, but before I even get into definitions, I want to discuss about how we understand language. Most of the majority of the words that we learn is from the context in which it was used, and we identify the meaning of these words by the context and how the words were used. We don't learn the majority of language from the dictionary, so we don't learn the proper meaning of the words. We just assume what they mean based off of how the words were used, and that's the majority of the language that we understand. That's everybody, every language. All right. It doesn't really. You don't know exactly the meanings of the words until you look up the definition. But even the definition is up for interpretation. All right. So let's get to definitions. All right. So ego. When I looked up the dictionary's definition of ego, it was talking about self-esteem and self-importance. Also talked about the mediator between the unconscious and the conscious. And I can understand, when I think about it, I can understand that. It makes sense, And like the contemporary use of the word, I often hear it does sound more about the self-importance and your self-esteem. Okay, but let's get to another definition. The best definition, or the one that helped me understand what ego means the most, was in the book Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. So what he was saying, and let's try to remain objective, even if you don't like religion, you don't believe in God or whatever. That's unimportant. It doesn't matter. But just listen to information, take what you can from it. But he says that God is the energy. The difference between a dead body and a living body. There's an energy within the body that keeps us alive. Right? Okay. So the energy that's in everybody is God. So every living thing has God within them. All right. Now, the ego is when you separate yourself from everything else. When you separate yourself from every other living being. It's your identity. When you say I, that's ego. When you say me, that's ego. Anytime you think a thought that's separate from everybody, if you don't see yourself as a part of everything and everybody, that's ego. Every idea that separates you from the rest of humanity, all living things, that's the ego. And once I heard that really changed my perspective of ego, and it goes in line with the dictionary's definition as well, but it goes even further. All right, so let's look at the word humanity. When I look up the word humanity, it was talking about kindness and generosity. I thought to myself, well, like, that's not every human. That's definitely one of the best qualities of being a human being, but it's not that often that you see people be kind and generous. It's kind of rare. But let's look at that. Okay, if they're like that, it's the ego that stops people from expressing their humanity. When they're selfish, when they're doing it for themselves, that's not for everybody. They're not thinking about everybody. They're separating themselves from everybody. So it's like the ego can be the enemy of humanity. You know, the more you feed the ego, the further you get away from humanity. So you start to think about it, or at least I do, and then every problem stems from the ego and lack of humanity. You know? So maybe you might be like, yo, Prophet, why don't do you have a problem with identity? Do you think we should just give up the idea of identity, like have no names, all of us be the same? Have like we all try to just be together and just give up on uh, modern day society? I don't think so. But I do think I do enjoy being an individual. But I think the balance is out of whack. I think the more you feed into ego, the less humanity you have. You know, there needs to be a balance. Society as itself feeds into ego. The media, social media, corporations, advertising, everything, education, political systems, religion, all these things feed into the ego. Capitalism, you know, like these things feed into the ego, make it grow greater and greater, and then you don't have enough room for the humanity and care about your fellow man, or woman, or child. And that's what so many people feel justified in being cruel to one another. And that's why you have so many problems today in the world. You know, it's like they worship ego more than they do humanity. And I think there's a way to have a healthy ego, you know, but you gotta be concerned about humanity though, you know.